Kevin Raber with my good friend, Drew Altdoerffer.
Yeah, you're getting better and better at this every time. Yeah.
I'll get it right one of these days, but we'll spell it underneath so you can all get it.
Yeah, sure. Phonetically, I hope.
We're starting off the new year at Cataract State Park in Indiana on almost
an unwinterish day.
yeah, almost. We could actually take our jackets off and
I'm not going to. It's still
be
cold.
that cold. But we've got beautiful blue sky, we've got waterfalls behind us, and we got a camera full of table.
We got a camera full of table.
And we've got a table full of cameras. Once a year I get together with Drew and a number of the other Phase One guys. And,
Not often enough, Kevin.
Yeah, no, not often enough.
No.
And we look at what's new, and there's some pretty cool new stuff if you've had your ear to the rail that Phase One has come out with recently.
We've been working on it for some time. Yeah.
And let's make sure before we go too far with the cameras, you've got Capture 112 out now, which is just an amazing piece of software.
Doing fantastic. Yeah.
And you've got a 151 megapixel.
You can't forget that
digital
one.
back. It's a
150 isn't enough. We had to go the extra.
Leave it to the Danes not to round things off.
Right.
So
This one goes to 11.
that extra 1 megapixel
That's what does it.
will pull you right to the edge.
Yeah, because otherwise, I mean, what's 150 worth? Nothing.
So
you need 150.
We're sitting here at this table, and we're going to go shoot some images shortly, but we wanted to talk a little bit about these new cameras before we get out there. And we have a lot to talk about over the next few days that Drew is here. We're going to be doing a lot of different things. But I think collectively we're looking at probably $150,000 worth of cameras sitting in front of us.
There's 403 pixels on the table, I think.
403 million pixels.
Yeah, megapixels.
Megapixels.
Right, and yeah, probably like $120,000 worth of kit on a $12 picnic table.
So Drew, tell me, let's start over on this side with
Sure.
this camera, and we'll work our way across to the two ALPA cameras.
Right, so this is the XF with the IQ4 150. It's called the 150, but it is 151 megapixels, go figure. So this is the flagship product from Phase One, but of course, as is the legacy of having all these different digital backs, we've got two very different but very similar ALPA cameras. We have the 12 STC and the 12 TC Travel Compact. This one has the IQ3 100 trichromatic on it. We've got another IQ4 150 on this one, and then of course this bad boy here.
Now, I love working with the technical cameras. This is actually
your
I
baby.
don't have the back. The back's mine, but
Yeah.
the camera's mine, and this is such a pleasure to work with. My photography sometimes, and I've been called prolific sometimes with the way I shoot.
Who called you prolific?
Jeff Shuey.
Oh, he's nice. What a gentleman.
So, and what that means is when I get to a spot, I just see so much, and I just shoot.
Right.
I'm shooting the big shots. I'm going in for the tight shots. But,
I would call that attention deficit disorder.
Well, it could be. Another abbreviation.
Sure.
Acronym we can use. But why I love shooting with this camera, and all the Phase One cameras for that matter, is that it slows me down, and it makes you think, and it makes you look.
Yeah.
But more than anything else, the magic is, not only the beauty and the peace of you get taking the picture, but when you see the image on the computer screen and you work with it. Because there's still nothing like a phase file.
It's safe to say that these three cameras are certainly not, they're not your Sony, your Fuji, your Nikon, your Canon. These things aren't built to take thousands of frames a second. They're not built to automate things for you. These are set up for photographers to be photographers. I mean, certainly we do more brain thinking and analyzation in the XF, and these are as static as it gets with manual focus lenses, manual copal shutters. But yeah, that slowing down, that actually taking a beat, looking at what you're shooting, trying to understand it, and then capturing the image, all that's part of the process. And at the end of it, with all three of these systems, you get phenomenal image quality. These are cameras for true photographers, people that just want to slow down, hone their craft, and we'll go do that in a little bit.
Yeah, we will. So let's put these cameras up here for a second, because I would like you to talk a little bit about all the features in the new camera, and what you've got here, and
let me turn
why
it on.
This is so different now.
Yeah, so the IQ4 it looks, I mean, this is the IQ3, right? So if we look at just the digital back, this one versus this one, they're looking pretty much identical. They looks like a duck, sounds like a duck. However, it's completely rebuilt from the ground up. We took all of our time to really build this technology in the IQ4, really make sure that this is going to be something that'll last us well into the future. So everything that's inside of here is brand new, proprietary design. Everything that we thought about with this camera system, we approached it from really a different angle. The IQ1, 2, and 3 have kind of reached the end of where we can push them. You know, we crammed that 101 megapixel sensor in there 2 years ago. And now we're working with the new sensor, with new opportunities, kind of new magic that we can work with. We built a whole new foundation in the Infinity platform. We've taken elements of Capture One and crammed it inside of this thing. And we've over-engineered this. So, I mean, this is 10 times more powerful than we need it to be right now, but we've built it so that we can expand this and keep growing on top of it.
Room for growth over the next few years. One of the things that I think Phase has always done a great job of is
making cameras light and small. No?
They aren't necessarily light and small, but they do a very good job updating the firmware and both on the camera bodies themselves and the backs.
Yeah, and that's part of our entire philosophy and approach to a camera system, which we think is very different than what everybody else does. You know, when other companies come out with a new feature or new technology, you have to buy a whole new camera. Your lenses still work, which is great, but you're constantly, every 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, you're buying these new cameras. You got to get used to them, you got to set them up, and then you just save up your money for the next one. When we design this camera, we want to make it so that, you know, this is the camera that you have for a decade. Yep. And we will grow with you by just providing new firmware updates, new features, and we get to kind of, you know, have this relationship with our customers where they come up with great ideas. Wouldn't it be fantastic if the camera did this? All right, we get to take it back to the lab, sit down, try and figure out how to do that, and then boom, a firmware update, and you've got that feature.
It's amazing. You know, a lot of you that have been following me for years know that I had my start with Phase One in 1999, December of 1999 I came on board. And there was a 6 megapixel camera.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
which at the time was pretty good.
And of course, it was tethered, which was like, you know, really
that was
a different kind of ball game. I mean, the game has changed so much.
Right.
And sitting here today, you know, I kind of having this whole history timeline flash in front of me.
Right.
From, you know, tethering into computers with FireWire that it actually took a technician sometimes to work with. We had scanning backs, and then you know, we had a little Sony Vaio portable computer which was tethered into.
Yeah, you could put it on your belt.
And
that was a good time.
You know, then finally the untethered camera came and things started changing.
Yeah, yeah, that was a big shift for us. And then of course we've never looked back from there.
And you know, now sitting here with the power that's inside this camera is just pretty damn cool.
Yeah, and tethering is still such a huge part of, you know, our camera system. But you know, that 6 megapixel, the light phase back in 1999, that was a tethered camera system with a FireWire port on it. And you know, that was our bread and butter, was working in the studio tethered to a computer. But we haven't left that. I mean, that tethered workflow is still so essential to our core customers working in studios, fashion photographers, still life photographers. And with the IQ4, you know, we've taken that to the next level. We have Wi-Fi tethering, so you can actually control the camera and transfer over full RAW files over Wi-Fi. The speed of which that happens depends on the file you're shooting and how good your Wi-Fi is, of course. But we put an Ethernet jack in here, so you can connect with cables that are hundreds and hundreds of feet long and control the camera system. And then, you know, we've updated this to USB 3 with the C fitting, so the same as all your MacBook Pros.
So, you know, all the standards.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, we certainly, even though we moved from a tethered camera, that's all it could do, to a camera that could be portable, run on its own battery, to a CF card, shoot to a CF card, we still maintain, you know, that core of tethering the camera system. It's still a huge part of our DNA.
You've got 2 tethering options, plus the wireless option,
right,
which would normally sometimes, correct me if I'm wrong, you could wireless go to a laptop.
Yeah,
Primarily, you have an application called Capture One Pro, or Capture Pilot.
Capture Pilot, but Capture Pilot is really built specifically for Capture One workflow. You know, we're looking at kind of the future of, now that we have this Wi-Fi technology and we've got some other, you know, hidden bells and whistles in here that we really haven't turned on yet, but you know, a lot of that photo workflow is becoming more mobile centric, you know, controlling the camera from your iPhone, and really, as technology grows on your iPhone, an app can update and change. So Capture Pilot is very much geared towards Capture One. And of course, we made it work with the IQ3s, and you can make it work with the IQ4s, but we're thinking more in the future and how all that technology is shifting and what we can do to connect to this with a mobile device.
So it's interesting. You know, where a number of camera companies make a camera knowing that in a year and a half they're going to have a new camera.
Right. We
essentially, you know what possibilities are for this camera for the next 5 years out. So
At least 5 years.
you purchase this camera, and basically you're just going to keep getting a new camera with the updates.
Yeah.
Of the
Yeah,
firmware.
absolutely.
Now, the other thing I think is kind of cool, especially with all the criticisms going with one card storage solutions.
Right.
You didn't get caught in that trap,
No,
did you?
of course not. We put XQD, which is this little guy. So
Yep.
that's kind of the
I
new
love these
format
things.
for, it just supersedes CF. So it's very, very fast, very robust, very stable. And then we put, it's kind of hidden in here, but we put a little SD card in there. So there's
Wow,
the
so-
XQD and then there's the SD.
Now, how does this actually work in the capture side of things? Everything captured to the XQD? Can you decide what goes on what?
Yeah, and I mean, really, that question, how does it work? How do you want it to work? Because we can
okay.
do whatever you want. Now, the way we've set it up is that this XQD is your primary source to capture because it's a big raw file. It's 151 megs of resolution, so you're looking at a 180 meg raw file, depending on your resolution and everything. So it captures the XQD because XQD is very, very fast. So it captures and records the XQD, so it clears the buffer. And then you can choose to maybe process that raw file into a JPEG, store that on the SD. You can mirror whatever is on the XQD goes onto the SD. You can archive, so no matter how many times I change an XQD, put in a new one, I'll just keep writing to this SD. And SD is cheap. You can pick them up at the gas station, you know, they're everywhere. And so this is something that you can kind of hide in the camera, just keep putting all the raw files on there, so you have this collection of thousands of your raw files on a terabyte SD card, or it's something that with every new XQD you can put in a new SD and kind of keep this as a tertiary backup, or it's something that you can, you know, of course, if you're maybe photographing in a place or of something that you're not supposed to, and somebody asks you to kindly delete the photo, well, you can delete it from the XQD card and they'll never see the SD, and you can, yeah, just keep that hidden away. Maybe tuck it in your underwear and then hightail it out of there.
Okay.
Yeah, we all know how that goes with photographers.
Yes.
So we've thought of everything.
Well, that's pretty cool. I'm just thinking of the whole possibilities then.
They're endless.
Well,
It is the Infinity platform, Kevin.
and the CF cards are now gone away, and that was something you guys were so hooked on for a while. And
Well,
so,
I think with CF cards, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
So with CF, you know, we built that into the first P units back in the early 2000s, like 2007, 2000 something. We built it into those, and it was great, and it worked. And that technology grew, and we could update the firmware to, you know, write faster and write things more securely. But it never got to a point where we would gain anything by changing from CF. The system wrote so fast, the cards could read and write so fast, we compressed the files in the right way, that there was no reason to change. But now that we have this new platform, of course we need to think 5 years, 10 years into the future. Well, we need to adopt new standards.
I think the USB-C 3C is a huge step
Yep.
to go. Ethernet, I would never have thought I'd ever see capturing through Ethernet. But
Yeah, and I think the story behind why Ethernet, why we decided to adopt that is, you know, we needed an internet connection, a network connection. So that could have just been Wi-Fi, and that would have been very easy, but now you're limited. So if we already have that network connection, you know, thinking about that, well, let's just put the standard port in there that everyone uses. You can pick up a cable at any electronics store, but then we get all these benefits of, you know, power over Ethernet, how we communicate with the camera. You know, we can essentially reprogram the camera from that Ethernet jack because that communication port is so robust.
Oh, wow.
And then, you know, once you're connected to a network, the sky's the limit in how the camera can integrate with your workflow.
So not only, if you're in a studio situation, shooting through the Ethernet into a computer that's probably also connected to some sort of bridge or
some network.
You know, your image is going on the machine could also be networked off to other machines somewhere else, or an art director's machine.
And we've set this up so that, you know, we just need to know what people want to do with the system. But we've set it up so it communicates to a network, and that can be any network. So we can be here in Indiana taking pictures, and via Wi-Fi I can have it connected to my cell phone, and that could send the file anywhere in the world if I set it up the right way.
Is it hard to set up?
Well, it is right now because, you know, we don't know how people want to use that, but
I see.
that possibility is built into the camera system.
So you're also at a certain point now where you're doing something that Phase One has always done well, is listening to what your customers want. in
Yeah, I hope
regards to
so.
this.
Yeah, and I mean that's what makes my job so great, is I get to hang out with photographers and listen to them, and then go make these things happen.
Now, I've read a little bit about the fact that you're creating a JPEG in the camera.
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
And I don't want to presume, you're processing a RAW and leaving a JPEG that somebody can take off and not have to work with. But
No,
it's a different JPEG or something.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly don't want to make a full res JPEG from a 151 meg RAW file, because that's going to take a lot of battery power and processing power, and really, why do you want to do that in this camera system? But what we do provide is a reference JPEG. So right now it's a small thumbnail. You'll be able to scale that into, on the back, we see in the future that maybe somebody wants a 20 meg RAW file or a 30 meg RAW file or something. Well, we can make those options possible. You can put your IQ styles, that part of Capture One that we've put in here, you can apply those to the JPEGs. You can send...
Right in the camera.
Yeah, right in the camera. We've never had a camera system that can shoot JPEG, and this certainly can't shoot JPEG, but because we took elements of Capture One, the opportunity for us to process that RAW file into a JPEG is there. And now we get, all of those core elements of Capture One. So all that image quality in creating a JPEG, all that flexibility and scalability, those are all at our fingertips. We just need to know what to implement in order to give people that possibility.
Something people have been critical with, in specifically landscape photographers over the years, is whether a JPEG could be made that really gives a true representation of the histogram.
Right.
And is that something that you might see more now versus in regards to
certainly, because with this back you can see the raw histogram and then you can see the JPEG histogram. So that RGB histogram of the output. Now, as you're able to put on a different IQ style, and as we grow and expand that Capture One inside element, you'll be able to get a true representation of, this is actually your JPEG. Here's the JPEG, here's the histogram of that JPEG. And that way you'll know exactly what you're working with.
Oh, wow.
And of course it's light and small, fits in your pocket.
Something that we've covered in other videos, but we might want to go back and refresh this, is that obviously the back has a lot of new features, and we'll be touching these in some further videos and showing some screen grabs and different things along the line on how to set it up and make it work.
Right.
But one of the beauties, and this is something I've said in a number of articles I've done on this camera, is that Phase One sets the bar, and they set that bar high, really high.
Yeah.
Not only for themselves, because they want to keep pushing that envelope, but for other camera manufacturers. And one of the things that works so well is the integration between the back and the camera. For example, you have something I've always loved doing, and I did a whole article on it, was focus stacking.
Yeah.
But tell me some more of the things. Let's review the integration and why the integration is so important to the camera with this.
Yeah, I think when you get a normal camera, a Canon, Nikon, Sony, it is an integrated camera. The sensor and the processing platform lives on the camera, and if Sony's making their G Master lenses, those all talk to it, and you can do incredible things. And part of the challenge of having a modular system where we manufacture a digital back, we manufacture a camera body, a prism, different lines of lenses, is that we need to set these things up so they're cohesive, so they communicate in one very clear way. As we grow the technology, we get all these new possibilities on, we expand the technology on the digital back, but what can the camera do with that information? Or we update the firmware on the lens, or build a new lens and have new specific specifications on that lens. Well, what can the camera use that for? And so that's kind of where those tools that we built into the XF come from. Now, when we launched the XF, we had a lot of ambitions for making the be-all and end-all medium format camera system. And I think what's nice about Phase One and nice about my colleagues is we have a clear understanding of what we want personally in the camera system. We have a very open ears to what our customers want, but we also don't think that we have all the answers. So we prepare the system to grow with the feedback that we get. And so that's what we did with the XF. We launched it in 2015, and since then we've had 4 updates with new features that customers ask for. Focus stacking is one of them, and it's one very, very simple but very elegant and powerful tool, where the lens knows exactly where it is in the focal plane because you tell it. It knows exactly where it needs to travel to. It knows the resolution of the sensor that's in the digital back, so it knows how many images it's going to take at that aperture with that depth of field in order to give you a clean series of images and focus stacks. So The focus stacking is one, you know, the vibration analysis is another,
love that.
the flash analysis when people were having issues with, you know, my flash isn't putting out enough power. Well, let's give you an actual visual tool so you can see how much power it's putting out, when the timing is for the shutter. You can adjust and tune the camera. This is a professional camera system, and it's, you know, it's very, very powerful in the right hands. So you can customize and tune and adjust this camera system to be everything that you need it to be. So we did that with the XF. Building those features, we're by no means done with the XF. We even found a new autofocus sensor that we could put in there that would get us better performance in low light situations. And now that we have the IQ4, we kind of have all this new processing power and space that the whole system shares, right? So the XF can now be more powerful because it's got this new engine kind of strapped to the back of it. Imagine a scenario where the back knows exactly, you know, how you want to shoot the image. You've set it up with the right exposure and everything. Now the camera body can automatically say, well, this is a very long exposure, so maybe I should go into some sort of sleep mode. Maybe I should put the mirror up gently. Maybe I should, you know, cycle the camera a little slower because this might shake the camera. All these things that, you know, it knows what to do. We have this potential to build off of and expand on.
Quite an impressive camera system. Can't wait to use it over the next few days and see what we can produce with it.
That's what we're here to do.
One of the things that we'll be covering is we will do in-depth into all the operational aspects with the menus. And
we are going to do that somewhere warmer.
We will do that inside, most likely, the studio where
Lovely.
You know, we can feel warmer. My fingers are feeling a little chilly, but actually the sun is out, and for a winter day, we got nothing to complain about.
True, you're right.
So we're going to also do some shooting with the technical camera. This is kind of a no frills kind of thing. You still get some of the power in the back, correct?
Yeah. I mean, there's still a whole bunch of potential of how this back can work on this technical camera. And it you know, the biggest benefit that we see with the IQ4, the IQ4 150 has a BSI sensor, backside illuminated sensor. So that sensor is much more efficient. And we don't get a lot of the lens cast that we get with, say, the IQ3. So it'll be fun to do some comparison testing on different lenses and see, you know, how much cleaner that file is, and that clean file results in better image quality. And of course, they're all strapped to these amazing Roden stock lenses, so, you know, we'll be able to have some fun.
Excellent. I can hardly wait. So, are you ready to take some pictures?
Let's get out there.
Yeah, before the light goes inside,
right.
It's going to do some crazy wintertime stuff.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay.
So everybody, catch up with you soon. We're going to go get the tripods out of the car and try to do some waterfall shots.
Some of that photography we keep talking about.
Or as they would say, cataract foss.
Yeah, cataract.
Cataract.
We're photographers at a place called Cataract.
Yeah, hard to believe.
Okay.
All right. Catch you later.